Hi, folks. Thanks to everybody joining on so far. Still got a couple minutes till 7, but we're probably going to give it just a little bit as folks start to trickle in. But thank you all for coming tonight, and looking forward to a good Zoom here. Thanks so much. Hi, folks. Thanks to everybody who's joined so far. We're just going to give it another minute or two here. We had about 95 signups for this webinar thus far, and more by the minute. And looks like we got about 30 people so far on the Zoom. So just want to give folks another chance to hop on before we get started. But we'll kick things off officially by 7:05, the latest. Just want to give folks another couple minutes here to join if they haven't had the chance yet. Thanks so much for your patience. Thanks, everybody. Looks like we're still getting some more people logging on. Just going to give it till 7:05 and then we'll get started. Thanks again for your patience. How are you, folks? Just going to give it another couple seconds here. Um, okay. So 7:05, looks like we got a fair number of people on. More folks might join as we go on here. But can everybody hear me okay? Saw someone say in the chat they didn't receive any sound. So if you can hear us okay, let us know. Feel free to use the Q&A feature to do so. Okay, someone said sounds good. Okay, awesome. So with that, let's just dive right into things. So for folks I haven't met before, my name is Ken Colon. I am on the exec board of the Islip Town Democratic Committee, and the president of the new North Islip Democratic Club. Quick couple thank yous. I want to say thank you to the Suffolk County Democratic Committee for letting us use their Zoom webinar to do this. Obviously, thank you to the Islip Town Democratic Committee for co-hosting this with us, along with our club. So I just want to give folks a quick kind of lay of the land in terms of what to expect over the next hour. So we're going to start things off with Eric Horn, whom you see on your screen. Eric is a immigration attorney practicing in the Brentwood area. And so Mr. Horn will share with us what he's seeing on the ground, what folks can expect to see from immigration attorneys like himself, as well as other attorneys you might encounter, some kind of basic background on your rights and your options, for folks who might find themselves in need of legal services when it comes to immigration. From there, we are going to have our chairwoman, Leanne Barty, from the Islip Town Democratic Committee, talk a little bit about what the committee is doing both on this issue, in terms of putting pressure on our federal electeds to act. We'll also hear from Emiliano Castillo. He is our new organizer with Suffolk Dems, focused on the Brentwood, North Bay Shore, and Central Islip areas. He'll be talking a little bit about our direct response initiative, where we're looking for folks to sign up to do things like grocery runs, provide transportation to appointments for folks who might be afraid to leave the house due to, well, everything that's going on federally. And then the bulk of the program is we want to hear from you. We'll ask folks to raise their hands on Zoom. We'll allow folks to kind of come off mute, and you can have up to 1 minute to share what your concerns are as it pertains to immigration enforcement. What are you seeing? What are your concerns? What are you worried about? And our hope there is that we can kind of keep things civil. I know this is a tough topic for a lot of folks. So I just ask that you keep it on topic. Let's not get into any personal attacks, be it against anyone on the Zoom, our electeds, anyone else. Just keep it on the issues. We will, if folks kind of derail from that, we'll have to mute folks. So I hope we don't have to do that. But that's your opportunity to kind of raise your concerns. What we'll do as a club with those concerns raised is we'll compile them, forward them to our federal officials, calling them to act. We'll also share this recording with our local Democratic elected officials so that they're aware of the concerns being raised. I will also, there will also be an opportunity afterwards, after the public portion, for our elected officials and their offices to say a few words to the attendees. I would just like to thank Senator Martinez's office, who is on the Zoom, Assemblyman Ramos's office, Legislator Gonzalez's office, and Councilman Guadron's office, who are all on the Zoom, and you'll be hearing from a few of them at the end. So without further ado,
sorry, Ken, I don't want to interrupt, but
yeah,
there was one important detail you missed. When the club is compiling this information to protect everyone here, your stories will remain anonymous, and I know that's a very anxiety-ridden point. So I wanted to make sure that it did get said.
thank
We are
you,
not
Lynn.
going to be sharing your info. We are here to keep you safe, and this is a safe space.
Exactly right. No, to apologize for. Thank you for mentioning that, and my apologies for forgetting that. And so, without further ado, I would like to pass the mic to Mr. Horn. And Eric, I will let you take it from here. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for having me. A little bit about myself. I am an immigration attorney. This year will be year number 30. My office is here in Brentwood, doing everything, pretty much everything within immigration, asylum, cancellation, or for residents, for non-residents, the CARA, citizenship, family petitions, adjustments, SIDG, special immigrant juvenile status, bonds, appeals, pretty much you name it. We do it within immigration. And again, doing it for 30 years personally. I have a staff, including myself, that's 12 people. And I do like to provide myself as being a Democrat who does like to play nicely with the Republicans, voted for the first time for Michael Dukakis in 1988. Anyway, so what I wanted to mention, what is going on the ground. The first part about that I think is very relevant is for those of you that know someone that has court in immigration court. It was a standard practice for years when people were short on funds for people to go to their first court appointment without an attorney. Do not do that because, yes, ICE has been waiting outside courtrooms, not courthouses, courtrooms in immigration. You show up for your hearing, and they would try to have your case dismissed. And some, if not many, of the judges would go along with it. And then they would say, okay, your case has been dismissed, and now they're going to put you in expedited removal proceedings. And they're then saying that you are subject to mandatory detention. One of the things that has kind of come to my attention that is kind of shocking is that they are considering detaining people that they encounter who have humanitarian visas such as U's and SIDG, special immigrant juvenile, if if they're just waiting for a priority date, which is really kind of bizarre for me to understand. And I do wonder if that's going to get fought in the courts, but you don't want to be stuck in custody while they're doing that. And Right now, DHS is taking the position that pretty much anyone who entered illegally, um, and never made a lawful entry is subject to mandatory detention. So it used to just be criminals, um, and certain criminal charges that would make you subject to mandatory detention. And the Trump administration has taken a very expansive view of this, which I'm sure will get to federal court at some point, but it's not there yet, to review whether or not you can be um, subject to mandatory detention. You will sometimes need creative arguments, and often there isn't a creative argument to be had, but sometimes you do have them. I did was successful with one not too long ago, but it's not every time that you can pull that rabbit out of the hat. And if you are making the argument, um, very often DHS will appeal if you are able to get that person out of custody. So that part of stuff has been um, very difficult. I do think it's fair to say that I think, as people know, um, that they are trying to detain pretty much everyone. There was a recent court ruling in California, but only applies in California, does not apply here, about saying that ICE can't be apprehending people and be looking for people based on racial profiling. That is something that you should be aware of. And the most important thing that I encourage people to do is, if they do not have Know Your Rights information, to have it. I did send it to Ken, so I'm hoping that he can send it to people. But I will also say, if you come to my office or if you call my office, we will give it to you, send it to you, email it to you, red cards as well, in English and Espanol. Um, and you don't have to see me. You're certainly welcome to see me, but you don't have to see me. It's not charging you a consultation fee. And but for people to have that so they can live to fight another day. Um, that is perhaps the most important thing, to know your rights information, to know that, to make sure that everyone that you're with, and people that you live with especially, know that information. I would pretty much go as far to say at this point that if you have a removal order, and they have your address of where you live, or you have reason to believe that they have their address of where you live, um, meaning ICE, um, that you should expect that if you can reasonably have somebody else looking out of your house first to make sure that ICE is literally not waiting just past your driveway, that would probably be a good idea. Um, there is now stuff that is bizarre for me to think is actually happening, but is not just the mandatory detention stuff, not just apprehending people as they are leaving the courtrooms, um, but the IRS and ICE are now sharing information. So at this point, it is hard to encourage someone with a removal order um, to file their taxes, because they're going to be sharing this information. And the ICE uh, um, head, I forget, Tom Homan, specifically said, we are looking for anyone and everyone. So, as I did say, there are many people who were duped by the Trump campaign, who thought he was just looking for the criminals. And then his press secretary said, maybe in April, well, if you are here illegally, you are by definition a criminal. I don't think that that's what most Trump supporters signed up for. Some did for sure, but I don't think most. Um, but my point is, therefore, you have to be extremely vigilant in all of those forms. I do think um, I've not seen significantly harder information when people are applying for residence for their spouses and parents, for example, and their children. I do have an outlier case where that's happened, but I've not seen it case after case. Although that said, I will emphasize that you are seeing them be harder about cases that have criminal history, um, and where where there is information where it needs to be done, um, in the exercise of discretion, you are seeing them take a little bit of a harder stand on those. So with that, I think I will pause here, and I'm going to be here for questions from the audience. And again, if you have any questions for me here, and one easy way for you to remember where I am in Brentwood is I am in the same complex as Legislator Gonzalez. So I'm 3 doors down from Sammy's office.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. And as Eric mentioned, the Know Your Rights information that his office provides, we will be sharing in a follow-up email afterwards. So thank you so much. And if you have questions for Mr. Horn, please throw them in that Zoom Q&A. You
I
can
may
either
ask
get to
one
them
quick
here.
one. If I
Sorry?
may ask one quick one while everybody's putting some questions in. Mr. Horn, when you're in court, have you seen, like, does it feel like on your end that the goalpost was moving? Because at least to the public perception, it kind of feels like every time we're starting to get our bearings within this, the goalpost moves. Like he tried to make it so that you no longer need a warrant to get into, people's homes. Like, is it also happening the shift like that on your end in court?
Well, I think what we're seeing is we're seeing um, the thing that I say is the most disappointing thing that I have seen in 2025 is pretty much the capitulation of the Supreme Court to Trump. And the two mind-blowing decisions to me, perhaps more than any others, were the birthright citizenship, and even more so the third country removal. And the third country removal, where if you have where people cannot the Trump administration is sending people to hotspots such as South Sudan, which I don't believe is on anyone's vacation bucket list that's here, but they're actually sending them to places like that without any regard to whether or not the people have much any connection, or even if they have reason to think that they're going to be unsafe there. And that, to me, the fact that the Supreme Court said, well, the Trump administration can go ahead with this because it's not an urgent matter, essentially, if people can live or die, is one of those where it's very hard to kind of process what's been going on. And I would say also the birthright citizenship, perhaps on a little bit smaller of a scale, and only smaller relative to, okay, are they going to live or die kind of thing, as opposed to saying, well, you're going to, instead of a court being able to use one federal court being able to use a nationwide injunction, you might want to go via the class action route. So, I mean, that is odd, and I think that that was something where maybe they were trying to come up with a way to please Donald Trump, and also in part because, let's be honest, Donald Trump, at his own admission, likes to flood the zone and likes to push the envelope. And I don't think that he would. I don't think he'd be upset with me saying those two phrases. In fact, flood the zone is his term, and so he likes to use executive actions frequently. So I think that gave him cover to use it more frequently. But in terms of the courts, you are seeing, um, from the Board of Immigration Appeals, you are seeing um, more and more decisions, and that are making things more difficult for immigrants at least once a week, I would say on average. Asylum perhaps being the number one area where you're seeing it, but definitely not exclusively. Definitely seeing it in asylum, definitely seeing it in bonds, and somewhat in other areas like adjustment of status and cancellation of removal, where you are seeing it as more difficult.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Horn. So I know we have a few more questions in the chat for Mr. Horn, but in the interest of time, I think maybe what makes sense, just as we do have a couple more speakers, and I know we want to give some folks ample time to get their own comments in, we can just maybe perhaps address some of these questions just in the follow-up email, if that works for folks. So without further ado, I do want to turn it over to our Islip Town Democratic Committee Chairwoman, Leanne Barty, to just talk about what the committee is doing on this issue. And then next we'll turn it over to Emiliano to talk briefly about what the club is doing, and then we'll get into the public portion. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. I am not going to keep you long. I just want to let you know that the Islip Town Democratic Committee will continue to show up to all protests to make sure that we are defending every single person in our community, because I, like you, live here. These are our neighbors. And for anything that is a need, please let us know. You can reach us at chair@islipdc.com, CHAIR @islipdc.com. Let us know, and we're more than happy to do whatever we can or connect you to where you need to be to fill the need. We are here to be your advocates. We're here to listen, and we're going to continue to fight to the bitter end until we restore everyone's rights and democracy to where it should have always been. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lee. And with that, I want to turn it over to Emiliano from Suffolk Dems.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to keep it really brief. I'm just here to say that we as Democrats and as the different Democratic clubs that we have in Islip have, of course, heard and noticed and do believe that it's our role to do something with this current emergency that we're having, situation that's affecting so many families in the district. So one of the small ways that we're trying to start sort of pulling more for weight in the district is that we started this rapid response form. Basically, what it entails is that we are gathering different people who have some sort of weekly availability or availability within their month to give some of their time to the families affected by these ice raids and who are unable to go out and do any of their daily functions. That can be anything from shopping to taking kids somewhere to going to a court day to all of these different things that people are seeing themselves being inhibited in. So this is a form that Ken will send out at the end of the meeting. I would encourage everyone to take a look at it. If you have any time and you want to take direct action to help your neighbors, I know all of us are going to be donating our time. And if anyone else is willing to, and you fill out the form, we will contact you to try to match you with someone who needs help in the district. And we're constantly seeking those people who need help and want our support. So if anyone has any tips on that as well, feel free to send those people our way and we will try to help them in whatever way we find. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Emiliano. So as Emiliano mentioned, and as Leanne mentioned, we'll definitely be including links for how to get involved with the committee and how to be a part of that direct response team, either both volunteering or, if you yourself are in need of services, definitely fill out that form or let us know. We're also aware that a lot of other groups on the ground are doing so. And so if you are part of one of those groups, reach out. We want to be collaborative. Don't want to reinvent the wheel in any way, but want to, all work together in the same direction to provide for our neighbors. And so with that, I want to now turn it over to our participants. And so, we have representatives from our elected officials' offices locally, As mentioned, we will kind of compile some of the concerns that are raised here, anonymize them, and forward them on to our federal officials. We're going to probably do that in letter form publicly and calling on them to act on these. And then we'll, in later meetings, discuss, potential follow-up actions and such. But I want to allow some time for folks here. So I would just ask if folks can just raise their hand on Zoom along the bottom, one at a time. Just in the interest of time, since we do have a lot of folks, we just ask you to kind of keep things to, a minute, or
Ken?
keep it on topic. Sorry, Eric, go.
Yeah, what I want to do actually for a second is I just want to mention a couple things, and I want to answer two questions that I see written that I think are helpful. First of all, if you see someone in an ICE arrest, doing videotape is just actually with like law enforcement is entirely legal and encouraged. And remember, of course, you don't have the right, you have the right to silence, you don't have the right to lie. Police and law enforcement do have the right to lie. Second, I want to also mention, as far as I'm aware, Ed Romaine has actually been good on the subject of immigration, but I will mention for those that are in probation, probation is cooperating with ICE in Suffolk County. And I want to go to two questions here. One, someone asked about, are there any plans for an alligator Alcatraz type facility being open on Long Island? The answer to that is no. And what happens is um, there are places, most commonly back in the day, it was really Texas, Louisiana, and Pennsylvania that overflow would be sent to. And of course, Alligator Alcatraz is going to put that as put that those other places to shame in terms of numbers and quite possibly cruelty. Um, and and what happens is you can be picked up in Brentwood and sent to a different state, and then you're subject to the jurisdiction of that circuit. There's 13 circuits. We're in the Second Circuit, um, and and you are just they are basically legally kidnapping you, um, and but I don't expect there to be more detention centers built here. The other question that I thought was important is someone wrote, should people hold off applying for immigration status since they're using information on applications like addresses to find people? That is a very specific question. The general answer that I will give, the first answer is, at this point, I would not be doing an application without an attorney and an attorney that focuses on immigration, not a dabbler. The second thing is, generally speaking, if you can file for the relief, you probably should. I mention that obviously in the sense of if it's a marriage case, I expect that your spouse knows what you're sleeping in and what side of the bed you're sleeping on, etc. Um, and um, and I'm also assuming that certainly anyone that's got anything that resembles a criminal issue or an immigration issue in the past, absolutely should be using an immigration attorney. But I do highly recommend for those people to make a consultation with me or another immigration attorney, preferably me, but with an attorney, a reputable attorney that knows what they're doing, because um, hiding is not necessarily the best answer. It might be for some people, but for people who can actually benefit, you know, I would work on it sooner rather than later.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Horn. Those are great questions, and thank you for your thorough answers there. So I just want to now give folks the opportunity, if probably the easiest way to do this is just raise your hand on Zoom, let you come off mute. You can talk about the concerns you have, maybe what you're seeing on the ground, what you're worried about. We'll do that kind of one at a time. And then, as mentioned, we will send follow-up resources afterwards. What we're going to do with the concerns here We're not going to share the recording publicly, just to protect people's privacy. We'll share it with our local Democratic electeds so they're aware of the concerns. And as mentioned, many of them in their offices are on the call to listen, so they can know the concerns that their constituents have. And then we as a club and committee will anonymize the concerns and again forward them to our federal officials. And so we have a couple people. Definitely just feel free to raise your hand, and we'll just start one at a time. Just gonna remind people just kind of basic ground rules. Let's just try to keep it on topic, avoid any personal attacks, and we'll get going. Thanks so much. So first up, we have Barbara. Okay, Barbara, you can unmute yourself at your leisure.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. Okay, so I'm a retired attorney, and I've spent a good part of my life before I was an attorney working with children.
Barbara,
My biggest concern right now
Barbara?
is
Barbara?
kids that are put into detention. So,
Barbara, I'm so sorry, you're cutting out.
all right, let me raise the, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, so what I started to say is I'm a retired attorney, but before I was an attorney, I worked in education. And so my biggest concern right now is what is happening to children in this. Because the terror that children that are being put in detention centers are being separated from their parents, it's got to be unfathomable. So what can I do personally, or who can I reach out to so that I can offer my services to help kids?
I'm just wondering, I mean, I wonder if that would be, what would be a good organization in terms of that? I, I mean, you're thinking more like the individual people, the individual people, as opposed to like helping. Let's say if there was like a class action lawsuit or something like that. You're talking.
I don't care. I'll do either one. Okay.
Oh.
I just don't want kids suffering in this. I am so infuriated that children are being subject to this. I will do whatever I can to help kids.
And I mean, I just wonder if like the and Ken, you might have a better idea than I, but I just wonder if, let's say, like the local chapter of the ACLU would be, um, a good place for someone to start, because the ACLU definitely is involved in stuff like this. And whereas, let's say, the National Immigration Law Center,
Right.
is active, I don't think that they get involved so much as at the local level. What they do is very important, and um, but I think I just think the ACLU might be a good place to start.
Okay.
I would second that. And if you'll allow us, we can do a little more research and maybe include some potential options in that follow-up email we send out to attendees.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. So now I want to turn the mic over to Marcy.
Hey everyone, thank you for putting this together. My name is Marcy Suarez. I am a Brentwood resident, an immigrant myself, and I work with young people in the communities of Brentwood, Central Islip, Bayshore, and Wyandanch. So a lot of my work this year has been rapid response to everything that's happening in relations to raids and holding safe spaces for our young people to be able to organize around what's happening in our communities. And I know you said no personal attacks, so I will hold names. But we've been organizing, trying to speak to elected officials, try to pass laws like legislations like New York for All, right, that will help set in place some protections for immigrant communities throughout the state. We understand that it won't be a full solution to what's going on at the federal courts, but it's saddening to hear that some of the elected officials are saying that they can't support legislation because it's popular around progressive circles, completely disregarding that this is a crisis that we're facing, right? A crisis that is attacking our immigrant communities, ripping families apart, ripping our community members away from their loved ones, and putting children in cages, complete families in cages. So I want to really know what's going on with our local Democrats and why are they so silent, knowing that some of them are immigrants themselves.
Thank you, Marcy. So I don't want to answer necessarily on behalf of any of our electeds here. As mentioned, several of their offices are on the Zoom, and at the end, they'll have a chance to kind of address our attendees here. And so I don't want to speak at a turn on their behalf, but do know that many of their offices are here listening in. We're trying to do what we can as a club and as a committee to get our neighbors the help that they need in this incredibly difficult moment. And if there's specific elected officials you want to follow up with, we will in that follow-up email provide their contact information for their government offices should you want to follow up on an individual basis.
Thank you. We have tried. They completely ignored us, but I appreciate you making the space for us to share this out here. And hopefully whoever's willing to help and step up, they will.
And as someone who is not an elected official nor ever plans to be one, I just wonder if, as you see the poll numbers for Trump's handling on immigration continue to go south, if there will be people who feel more safer about being able to speak out about it. Because again, I can understand some criticisms of at least certainly the first couple years of how the immigration system was under President Biden. I understand it. Whether I agree with it is a different question, but at least understand some of the argument. But as they continue to have more stories regarding cages and the mistreatment, and they're going to be having people dying and in these facilities, the poll numbers are not going to get better on immigration. And so you don't be surprised if you see more and more electeds try not necessarily to agree with you 100%, but saying, hey, we need to come up with something better and to be able to be people that can be spoken to. And I think sometimes you'll probably have people who will be able to listen to you more privately, or at least listen without necessarily feeling fully comfortable to respond.
So with that, thank you, Marcy. I just want to, in the interest of time, not to cut off the conversation here, as I think it's a good one, but I want to give Kyle, it looks like, as our next person on the list. And where did Kyle go? Oh, there he is. Okay. All right, Kyle, you are welcome to come off mute. Thanks so much.
My question is, I would like to join a rapid response team when something's happening and go and film it. Are there things that you've seen, anyone, that may be illegal, that is done by ICE, that we can maybe harp on?
So to answer that just briefly, we as a clubbing committee, it's not a network that we have per se, but just to highlight someone who I know is in our attendees and is doing some of that work in terms of filming interactions and such. Osman Canales is someone who's been going all over Long Island and filming these sorts of interactions. Also just plug Islip Forward is another group that tracks ICE sightings and does their best to verify them. And so Osman, if it's cool with you, and I think some folks from Islip Forward are on, we can include their contact information in a follow-up email as well. As far as the committees and clubs sort of direct response efforts, it's more on the resources side, and trying to connect folks to, say, folks who can run groceries for them or bring them to appointments and such. That's more of the stuff that we have done, but there are some great groups doing that kind of more of that, of filming ICE interactions and such, who are doing some great work. I don't know if Leanne or Eric have other thoughts, but that's my thought there. Thank you, Kyle. So it looks like Marcos is up next on our list. Marcos, if you would like to come off mute.
Yep. Just want to say thank you very much for hosting this meeting, and thank you, Eric, for your poignant for your poignant words and conversation. One of the things that I will suggest that, and I don't know if this is realistic or not, right? But I know there's been a lot of folks who have been out there video recording, bringing awareness to different things and making sure that this stays, on the front page of everybody's social medias, right? But what I would like to see, if it was possible, and again, this might be something doable or not, but I would love to see some of the lawyers run, go with folks, right? Or maybe go during the off hours where these snatchings are not taking place, and try to sign people up, from a pro bono perspective, to the extent that it's allowable, to represent them, right? So that when there's a situation, maybe these guys can say, well, here's my lawyer, call them. Or maybe, they can say, hey, look, I'm going to be here. If I have, there's a lawyer here who can at least interpret the way that the law is supposed to go. That might be something that can help folks when they're in the most vulnerable position. Because, what needs to happen is protection for individuals who do not have enough knowledge of the law, so that they're taken advantage by it, right? And we can, people want to be mad at who they want to be mad at, but what we got to focus on is ensuring that individuals are not having the law used against them in a way that is improper. So, with that, again, I would just like to say it would be nice if, these folks had access to some type of immediate representation, so they know who to say, they know who to pass information to, and that can help them, get some immediate protection when times are, when the time comes that they need that. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Marcos. Great points made. So I want to turn it over now to, looks like Swati.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
So my question is, I'm a foster parent in Suffolk County, and technically the county is the guardian of children in the foster system. They are sometimes undocumented, sometimes they have a TPS. I've had a child with me a while ago. She had a green card petition through EB4. Now, children in foster care, need to attend family court sometimes. So my question is two-part question. One is, are they at risk of being deported when attending family court? And also, just generally, how at risk are foster kids right now in the scheme of things when they are not fully documented or in some status of documented or undocumented?
So let me answer. Going to family court, I can say, is not an issue in Suffolk or Nassau County.
Mhm.
And I have not heard, certainly in Suffolk, but I've not heard of any issues of that in Nassau. So they should feel comfortable going there. Personally, for people, will go into immigration court, I do try to have my hearings by WebEx when possible, and if not to, I've not had a judge yet make a decision on the record denying a case in person where I've had the risk of detention. But going to family court, they're fine. The greater concern that I have is I do have one or two people who are just have the opportunity for citizen are just blowing it by like not going to school. But in terms of working with the county, one of the cases that I just had was with one of these kids that was doing that, and the law guardian was really nice with me, and the judge could see that she was trying to do the right thing, and I was trying to do the right thing, and thus she was doing the right thing. And I would say for the vast majority of family court judges, that will be a thing, but there is no coordination uh, between family court and immigration.
Right. Okay.
Probation, yes.
Yes. And so generally right now, foster kids you think are not in the order of things that are happening when they're undocumented, they are not really that high at risk, you would think?
Correct. They are not these. They are not the specific targets. I can't say that that foster kids that are encountered won't be detained, especially if for some reason they're over 18 and they're still in the foster system, which I think is a thing, but I'm not an expert on that. But generally speaking, no. Um, if they're keeping their noses clean, I will be fair to say I don't know anything if like anyone's in the what I'll call the juvenile court, juvenile criminal court system, so to speak.
Right. Right. And just one more thing I want to add to that, if I may. So there's one little tricky thing there that the thing about if somebody is over 14, I read something that they're in different various immigration statuses, they need to go register with the local DHS office or whichever. So then what happens if I have a child who's a foster child who's, let's say, 15, and they may not be documented, or they may be some tenuous documentation? Then you have to go to the immigration, not the court, but like the actual office to register them to say that you have them. And is that just completely risky then?
I'm going to be fair to say I have not had that issue come before me. I mean, there was a thing about the people registering, and and for my clients, it would be a scenario where I would say to people, if there'll be situations where people will have people that had their immigration court cases dismissed under the Biden administration, and they're being given appointments um, to to go see ICE now, to go see ERO, which is Enforcement Removal Operations of ICE, and and I'm in a position of telling them, well, as an officer of the court, I can't tell you to not report, but if you do report, you should expect you're going to be detained,
Right.
even if you have no criminal history. And that is actually a legal way for me to say things.
Right.
By the way, I do want to mention one thing that is important that I should have mentioned before. A number of people have had, if they had court cases previously, may well have had a case administratively closed. Most commonly, that was for in part for allowing people to work, but how it was applied by Biden was different than everyone else. But it did let people work. But the long story short is, I and my colleagues are getting um, motions to recalendar filed by ICE, um, and without any regard for where the client is or how long ago this happened. So, just as to use an example, I have a case that happened for someone where they asked for the person to recalendar the case from 20 years ago. And at the time, the person was 5 years old and has had DACA for the past 12, 13 years, still has DACA. and they still tried to recalendar the case, and I filed a motion to oppose it immediately, and I'm confident that one will win. I have won some of those, not I don't think I've lost one yet. But you filed them, and if nothing else, it gums up the system. But they are sending them, and if you get them, you are supposed to respond to them quickly. Technically, you have 10 days to respond. Often it takes them longer to get to them, especially given how many DHS has said to them. But the point is, if you find someone that gets one of them, you do need to speak to your attorney and respond to it immediately.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Just in the interest of time, as I know we have a couple of our electeds on, I'm just going to do just one more from our public comment, and I'm just going to try to get folks who haven't already spoken. So my apologies, Marcos and Barbara. But it looks like the next person up is Ahmad, and then we will turn it over to if any of the officials from our respective offices would like to say a few words to the crowd, and we'll do so just in the interest of time. All right, Ahmad, you are welcome to come off of mute.
Thank you so much, Ken. Eric, want to thank you for all the work that you're doing too to support families on the ground. You all are really the hidden heroes right now, so just appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ahmad Perez. I'm here today as someone who was raised in Brentwood. I'm the founder of Islip Forward, and earlier this year, we launched the Long Island Ice Tracker. Just want to come on here and kind of speak plainly because we continue to live under the weight of ICE surveillance, presence, and activity in our neighborhoods. ICE has been seen operating during the early morning hours when parents are getting their kids ready for school, when workers are literally heading out to their jobs, when families are simply trying to start their day. The vast majority of the raids that we've documented, 65 so far since January, have been concentrated right here in Brentwood and Central Islip. We've seen people taken outside of delis, from their driveways, in the middle of having breakfast with families, on the drive to work. This is literally happening on Suffolk Avenue, on Crooked Hill Road, outside delis where you go to grab a sandwich. And every time that we demand answers, we're met with the same familiar excuses of our hands are tied, it's not in our jurisdiction, there's nothing we can do. I know it was mentioned to not say names, but honestly, we pay their salaries, and so I'm going to say their names. Senator Martinez has publicly stated that she will not be a rubber stamp for legislation just because it's popular in progressive circles. And with all due respect, no one is asking you to be a rubber stamp. We're just asking you to be a public servant. And in Brentwood, that means understanding that protecting immigrant families is not a progressive trend, and that it's actually a moral imperative. And when you refuse to support immigrant protections because they don't align with your political brand, you are telling our community, our neighbors, our families, that their safety is up for negotiation.
So just to jump in here, I'm just going to ask that you just address kind of the general concerns and not specifically, and then we'll, if you want to follow up with Senator Martinez's office at the end, sort of individually, you can do so, but I'll just ask you to keep your just comments to the issue, and as stated, you can follow up with them individually, and they'll each office will have a moment to address attendees if they would like to do so.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to hearing them respond back. We've sent numerous letters and emails to no response, like others on this call too. But just to the general issue, families are being abducted. There are literally Jose and Josue Trejo Lopez, who are from Central Islip, are now in El Salvador as we're on this call, sleeping in a relative's home because they have no one there right now to support them. And now people are playing political games. And so I just encourage action and not just headlines and clicks. Thank you.
No, thank you, Ahmad, and thank you everybody who chimed in today to give their comments, their concerns, their questions. That's why we did this. We want our members of our community to have a space where they can raise their concerns, even if not everybody in this space sees eye to eye on every issue. And so thank you, each and every one of you who gave your comments. For the questions that we didn't get to answer, we will try to answer in the follow-up email. But now, before we're almost approaching the hour, I want to give some time to the various elected offices who may be on this call, if they would like to just address attendees before we jump. And I'll just say before we do that, so if any of our electeds and or their staff would like to, you could just raise your hand and I'll have you come off mute. But as mentioned, we'll compile these concerns. We will share the recording with our the various electeds. And just want to say again, thank you to all of you. Look out for that follow-up email for the sign up for our direct community response, for the resources that Mr. Horn mentioned, links for how to stay involved with the committee, links to other organizations who are doing some incredible work on the ground. And so again, my thanks to all of you. And so with that, I want to, it looks like first up is Christian Macario from Assemblyman Ramos's office, the Deputy Speaker. So Christian.
All right, Mike, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. It's great to be here today with everyone. Christian Macario, Chief of Staff to Deputy Speaker Phil Ramos. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Ken, for putting this together. I know it's a scary moment in our history, and it's one of those moments of reflection. And I think the questions really speak to our party's need to stand up in this moment and really address the community's concerns. Because as everyone on this call understands, we lost a lot of Latinos in the last election. And I think there's a moment where we can get a lot of them back if we do the work. If we stand united and we put resources and time and energy for the people that are getting most impacted. And on behalf of Deputy Speaker Ramos's office, I know that we're on the ground with you. We have committed to be there every step of the way, no matter how big or how small the issue is. We're with you there. You know, this year alone, we got $64 million in the state for the Office of New Americans to make sure that we fight back in the courtrooms, in the departments, but that's not enough, and we know that. So we are here to just say that we hear your concerns, we are united with your passion, and that we're not stepping back, and that we're going to continue to fight with you, not against you. And if there's anything that we can do as an office, please never hesitate to call us or email me directly, because we will always answer the call. So thank you again to all the speakers today and everyone who asked questions, and we'll keep fighting forward. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Christian. And our thanks to the Deputy Speaker. Looks like next we have Barbara from the Councilman's office.
Okay, I just want to say on behalf of the office of Jorge Gadron that we are dedicated to the community, assisting the community in everything that's going on, including any unfair, unjust actions that are being taken unlawfully, which right now is immigration. I just want to say, not as the councilman's business liaison, but I'm going to say this as a Democratic committee member, that let's remember who caused this situation. It's Republicans, okay? It's MAGA. They are the ones that voted for this hot mess. Okay, so let's not forget that. And division among the Democratic committee, calling people out is not going to resolve anything. Because what are we going to do? Do we want a Republican to replace Senator Martinez? Do we want a Republican to replace any other elected official? Would that be better? We should have learned better. So, these are not the times for us to do political propaganda. These are the times for us to put our heads together. Let me finish. I'm landing my plane. These are the times for us to stick together, work together for the community. And I am insulted as a child of an immigrant that we would use this occasion where we're sitting here to get information on how we can help the community, that we're pointing fingers. at our fellow Democrats. So let's do better, people.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's again, in the same way that we asked all of our attendees not to get into personal attacks, let's not do the same from our officials' offices.
Can I make one point?
Barbara, yes, go ahead, Mr. Horst.
Real quick, one thing that I think would be a very good idea is where we can have an 80-20 issue. Right now, I think it's fair to say that there are not everyone that voted for Trump would you call necessarily hardcore MAGA. There are convertibles that do exist. And my point is, keeping children in cages is a 20-80 issue. And we're on the 80 because we're opposed to it. And my point being, and I forwarded to Ken before a video about how ICE is locking up people for days inside 26 federal plaza with literally no place to sleep. And an article with it. And my point is, the more that we can focus and we can perhaps get out to the press it individually, not necessarily, the more of those 80-20 issues that are on our side, I think that could be a helpful thing to move the needle rather than going on attacks.
Thank you, Eric. So with that, I know folks from various offices and folks on this call, have busy nights ahead, and some of you may also want to get back to your personal lives, enjoy your evenings. So I just want to again express my thanks on behalf of the North Islip Democratic Club and on behalf of the Islip Town Democratic Committee, and just say thank you to each and every one of you who joined this Zoom, who listened in, who asked questions. Thank you. We really, really appreciate you expressing your concerns. I know this can be a difficult issue, but know that each and every one of you, even if it seemed like folks on the call may not always agree, we welcome you and we're thankful for your participation. I will send out a follow-up email again with the resources as mentioned. It does, I will just elaborate briefly. It looks like the Councilman's Chief of Staff, Lulu, just might want to say a few moments. So Lulu, if you want to just briefly just address folks, and then we'll I would let folks go for the night.
Sure. Can everyone hear me? All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lulu Chappelle, the legislative aide to Councilman Jorge Guadron for the town of Islip. I just wanted to basically state that I didn't want to write it in the Q&A, that our office is collaborating with the U.S. Senator from New York, Kristen Gillibrand. And we have contact information for their office as well for anything that they need, especially for the ICE forms, the 60-001 for advocating on behalf of people that are being detained by ICE. And the information is also strictly confidential. So we have that information if you need. I don't know where you would like me to provide that information. So do I text it to you, Ken, directly?
Yeah, you can text email it to me. I also have it in the chat. The councilman put it in there earlier, so I can just pop it in.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't
No,
see
no, all good. But yeah, if you want to just send it to me via email or text, I can make sure we include that information to all of our attendees. So thank you.
All right, great, awesome. So yeah, that was basically it, and I appreciate everyone's time tonight.
Thank you, Lulu.
Thank you.
And with that, I want to give everybody the rest of their evenings back. Thank you for chiming in. We'll include the follow-up. We'll also include how you can stay involved, future actions, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you again to everybody, and especially thank you to Eric for lending us an hour of pretty fantastic free legal advice. So thank you for not charging us several $100s. And thank you to our officials for making time, and especially, again, thank you to all of our attendees. And so with that, we'll give everybody the rest of their nights back. But again, thank you. Really appreciate it.